Guys, in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing tennis gadgets. I first saw this product during the quarantine, and I think the company sold a lot of these. And by the way, most of the products that are featured in today's video, I'm not affiliated with. There are two products, however, where I will have an affiliate link, and I'm going to tell you which ones those are. So I actually went out and purchased this thing, and I'm going to give you an honest review. Now, surprisingly, the degree of difficulty is quite high with this thing, because what happens is, right there, you saw that? I was a little too far away from the ball, and the rope had just pulled the ball back because it's an elastic rope. So the positioning and the timing is crucial if you want to have any chance to keep the ball in play. Now guys, this thing does tangle up quite often, so it is not a perfect device by any means, but it gets the job done. If you don't have a wall near you, if you don't have a court available, it's better to do this than not hit any balls at all. And guys, here we have a wrist trainer, and again, I'm not affiliated with this product. I actually purchased this, and I'm going to of course give you an honest review. These things have been around for a long time. There's many different devices, and the idea is basically to keep the wrist in an extended position. So for you guys that don't know, wrist extension is this, wrist flexion is this, and a lot of players have trouble. They flex the wrist on some shots, and this, depending on what shot it is not the best thing. So it makes a lot of sense to keep the wrist in place. So I'm going to hit a few balls and see if this device is a useful tool at the recreational level. And guys, the first thought I had when I saw this wrist trainer is that it's going to be great for practicing volleys, because a lot of players have an issue where they drop the racket down and the wrist collapses. So this keeps the wrist in play, and this can therefore train you the correct muscle memory on the forehand volley and also the backhand volley. So for the volley, I absolutely love having something like this. Now I will say that this shouldn't be used for long periods of time on the volley. I'm going to tell you why. Because what you want to do is develop the strength in your forearm and your hand and your wrist muscles so that you can play the volley without needing this device. So as a corrective technique that you get the right feeling, absolutely approve of this wrist trainer. And by the way, it even works on the low volley, because on the low volley, many people think, no, you can just drop your wrist down, but no, even on the low volley, you want to keep the racket head as high as possible, and instead of bending the wrist down and reaching down, you want to keep the racket head above the level of the handle, even on the low volley. So when it comes to the volleys, this is a fantastic device, but keep in mind that you want to train your arm musculature so that you can do this without the help of the wrist trainer. Now guys, how about ground stroke? So here it's going to get really complex, because if I play with a continental grip, this device is going to work just fine, because in a continental grip there's far less wrist movements than there would be in a more modern grip, whether it be an Eastern grip, a semi-Western, or even a Western. This is the case for the one-handed backhand and the forehand. In a continental grip, this device works perfectly fine, because what happens when I strike forehands and backhands with this grip, there's naturally very little wrist movement, and this is actually helping me to hit the ball cleaner and with more power. So now let me go over to a semi-Western grip and let's see what happens. So now all of a sudden I feel very restricted in the way my wrist is behaving. So what happens is, while this might be correcting some flaws that some players might have, I feel a big restriction in my wrist, and I'm actually hitting the forehand not only worse, but I also feel something in my wrist. So here's what happens on the forehand. I'm going to take this off to show you, is that the wrist is actually quite fluid when we're talking about a modern forehand. What that means is that the wrist will move in different positions. So if we're talking about a modern forehand, the wrist is going to be in a different position depending on the style of the player. And then once we hit these phases back here, the wrist might do several things. It might go back this way, but it also might go down depending on what type of ball we're hitting. So we need the wrist to be fluid enough so it can go down. Unfortunately, with this device, your wrist will not be able to go down. Your wrist will stay locked in an extended position. You're going to have a hard time when you're trying to go underneath the ball. Also, on the finish, many players with a modern forehand will naturally activate the wrist. Once the racket gets to about right here, they will go in a wrist flexion For example, Rafa, and when you have this device, it feels as if the wrist is locked in through the entirety of the stroke. And this device also does not work on a two-handed backhand, because the two-handed backhand should have a racket drop at least to a neutral position, but on the high level two-handed backhands, the racket actually drops below the neutral position, and we get into the wrist flexion here. So whether you're hitting a modern forehand or a modern two-handed backhand or a modern one-handed backhand, there's a lot of fluidity that's required with the wrist. And a device like this, while it might correct some flaws that some players have, especially at the recreational level, where maybe they're holding the racket too stiff or the wrist is too active in the preparation stage, this might be a corrective tool, no doubt about it. But if we're talking about developing the whole package, the whole picture, I don't like this device for the modern strokes, because the wrist needs to be fluid. Another issue when we hold the racket more in the Western grips on the forehand is that, look, in a continental grip, I can maneuver the racket to be in the correct position, because I want my index finger to be spread from the middle finger, and my thumb is right behind the racket, because the pressure from this band pulls the racket this way. So my thumb can hold the racket down and I can get the correct angle. However, when I put my racket in a more Western grip, let's say semi-Western, now I don't have the thumb here, wide open space, nothing holding it back, and naturally the racket is going to be snapped this way from the pressure of the band, and now I have a position of the hand that's incorrect. We don't want the fingers to be this close together, and now because of this I'm actually able to get certain angles on my take back that would be very unnatural. By maneuvering my hand down, by putting the elbow in, I can get the racket to go lower. And if you do that, you're not going to be training the correct muscle memory, because the elbow position is going to be completely different if the racket indeed is held correctly. Now, as the wrist goes down, the elbow can stay further back. Now, when it comes to the serve, the only serve you can practice with this device is the kick serve, because on the kick serve, we are going to have a position of the racket face that's more towards the left. If we're talking about a slice serve or a flat serve, the racket has to be more vertical, and now unfortunately we have this band blocking this from taking place. So if you want to practice your kick serve, it will be okay as a corrective technique, but even here on the finish you're going to get into some trouble, because on a real kick serve there might be some wrist movement, a slight movement of the wrist shortly after contact where the wrist actually straightens out. So by using this device on the serve, and just like the modern forehand backhand, you are going to be able to make some corrective techniques. This device might be great to make some corrections if you have wrist problems, especially in the preparation stages. But if you want to talk about the entire stroke, whether it be the kick serve itself or the flat serve or the slice serve or the modern forehand or the modern two-handed and one-handed backhand, this device has some flaws because you are unable to replicate the stroke exactly how it's performed. But having said that, I can highly encourage everyone to use this device on their volleys. This is definitely something that I can see myself using with my students who have problems with instability on the volley, because there's a lot of players, especially at the junior level, who will hit a backhand volley and the wrist will just simply collapse. It even happens on my volley because my arm is getting a little bit weaker. So this device keeps the correct angle of the racket face, and it allows you to maintain a stable contact, and is a good corrective technique. So for the volleys, this thing is definitely worth buying. And guys, the next device I'm going to review for you guys is basically a trainer for your serve. We can learn the right looping motion on the serve, and these type of things has been around for a long time. You can even make it very easily at home. Get a plastic bag, fill it with tennis balls, or get a very long sock, fill it with tennis balls, and you can do exactly what I'm doing now. Now this thing is nice because it has a real handle, so it gives you a better feeling of actually serving. And if we're talking about beginners or even intermediate players or even some advanced recreational players, a lot of them struggle with the correct service motion. They might have a waiter serve or an insufficient racket drop. So it makes a lot of sense to have something like this where a player can learn the right racket drop and the right looping motion on the serve. Where basically the weight of the balls brings the balls down and naturally gets the elbow to go up. So this is why it's a lot easier to do the loop with this device. When you get into the trophy position, naturally the momentum of the balls will carry the balls down here and your elbow will pop up. Now, a lot of rec players will still have a very difficult time making this looping motion. They will keep the arm straight like this. No, drop.
Yeah, so here, look at the front.
What about the loop in the front?
I don't know what to do here.
and it's very difficult to conceptualize the idea of serving because it is a unique motion. So for that reason, I do encourage my beginner players to learn this loop, because this is something that you can easily do at home, and this does give you a good visual image of what the actual service motion looks like. But guys, here are the hard facts. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen a lot of beginners. I love training beginners, as you guys know, and beginners could master this movement. They can start doing this exercise. All of a sudden they get a tennis ball, they throw it up into the air, and they're back to serving with a waiter tray. So you're probably asking yourself, Nick, how is that possible? Well, when you are hitting a ball that's in the air, it changes everything, because it changes everything at the mental level. All of a sudden, a lot of players will have panic set in. As soon as the ball's up in the air, they panic and they go right back to the old muscle memory. So while I don't think this can fix a waiter serve right off the bat, I do think it's a good tool to do. It's better to practice this if you have a waiter serve than not do any practice at all. But you have to be patient and realize that when you actually throw the ball up into the air, things will change from a mental standpoint, and there's a good chance that your old muscle memory kicks in. But despite that, this is definitely a device that I recommend for the recreational level. Another disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by the company that makes this serving device, but I am sponsored by the tennis pointer, and I'm sure you've seen this. It looks like a spoon, and the company Functional Tennis supplied me with one of these, and if you guys are interested in buying one of these, I have an affiliate link where I get a small percentage if you buy one of these pointers, and the link is going to be in my description. And this is a device that I really believe in, and I do use it in my training session. What does it do? Well, you can see that the sweet spot is unbelievably small, and of course this has a normal handle, so it feels like somewhat like a racket. Of course, it's not going to feel like a real racket, but it does feel good when you hold it by the real tennis grip. And now it's going to be very challenging to hit the ball. Now, high-level players or high-level juniors will play amazing with this thing. You cannot even imagine how well they play and how good their eyesight is, how good their contact point is. This is true for the high level and the high-level junior players. However, at the recreational level, I've seen something that's very interesting. I use this with a lot of my recreational players, and they are stunned when they realize that they can actually make contact with the ball with this little thing. See, a lot of recreational players have this belief that they are unable to make clean contact. They are afraid of the ball. And then when they start hitting with this tennis pointer and when they make contact, they're so surprised, and this actually helps them to relax a little bit mentally. They realize that they are actually quite good at making contact. They're quite good at hitting the ball cleanly, and they then realize that if they can hit the ball cleanly with a tennis pointer, it should be a lot easier with a real tennis racket. Ooh la la. Kind of what in the world's going on, man? So for that reason, I do like the tennis pointer. I think it's fantastic in progressions. If you hit 20, 30 balls with a tennis pointer and then you go to your real racket, you're going to see an improvement, and your contact point, you're going to be hitting the ball cleaner. And especially for players who struggle with hitting the ball clean, this device can help you with making better contact. And guys, I couldn't tell you how many of you asked me to review the Topspin Pro. I've received so many comments. I've received private WhatsApp messages, emails, and everybody asked me about my opinion on the Topspin Pro. And not only that, but the nice people from Topspin Pro have contacted me a while ago, and they wanted to do a deal with me, which I initially turned down because I don't like to do a lot of ads at Intuitive Tennis. If I do an ad, it's usually going to be intuitivetennis.com on one of the products that I'm selling myself. However, when it came to the tennis gadgets, I thought this would be a great opportunity to work with Topspin Pro because I do like the product. I think it's a fantastic product. So if you're interested in purchasing the Topspin Pro, there's an affiliate link where I get a small percentage, and the link is going to be in the description. Now here's the reason why I like the Topspin Pro. See, there's a lot of confusion between tennis coaches and tennis players of how topspin is developed. There's some coaches that believe that you can go simultaneously through 3 balls and also go up at the same time, and they don't realize that once you hit one ball, that first ball, and the ball's already off the racket, and it doesn't matter what the racket does afterwards. If you're continuing to go forward after that first ball, it's absolutely impossible to depart topspin on the ball. If you start going up after the moment of contact, the up part, that vertical swing path that I often talk about, has to be established at contact. You have to go up immediately if you want to create topspin. And now, the people from Topspin Pro know exactly how topspin is created. And I know there's a second part that comes down here, but I lost it somewhere, but it's okay. We just need the top part anyway. We can see that there's a vertical swing path that is made possible because we have this thing in front, so we can't go through. So when I hit this ball, I am imparting the real topspin the way it's done on the professional tour. This is a completely vertical swing path, but that's not all, guys. If I turn the Topspin Pro this way, now you will see that it's not actually completely vertical, because this would not be okay. This would be as too steep of a swing path. Maybe something that you would do on a topspin lob, but not on a powerful, heavy topspin forehand or backhand. So this is slightly tilted forward, exactly like the actual swing path happens on a forehand, which is not like this. It's actually a little bit more at a diagonal angle. I often describe it as a diagonal line that you have to go over. And the Topspin Pro, it shows you exactly how you're gonna do this. You wanna hit this forehand, see that the racket vertically grows across the ball. Now, a lot of times when my rec players try this, they will hit the frame on the plastic edges of the Topspin Pro. So it's important that you make clean contact and you don't do it too hard. You can start speeding it up as you get better. Another thing that I like, when you learn to make clean contact, you actually are going to have the perfect position of the racket face at contact. If you are a little bit too open, you're going to hit the plastic here. If you're a little bit too close, you're going to hit the top part here. So it does teach you a good contact point as well. Strike that ball. Good. Again, make clean contact. Yes. Make that ball spin. Yes. And I was invited by Emma, which is one of the players that I work with, and she's also a coach, and she was doing a kids camp in the summer. She invited me to come speak to the kids at the camp and answer questions. And one little girl asked me a really great question. I think she had a Topspin Pro. She couldn't remember the exact name, but she had one of these devices, and she asked me, is it good to practice with these things? And what I told her is exactly what I'm telling you. Of course, it's good to practice with a device like this, especially the Topspin Pro, because it's better than not hitting the tennis ball at all. Does it replace going on a wall or hitting on the actual court? No, because there you have the footwork, you have the timing, you have all these other aspects of tennis that are so tricky, but it's a lot better to do this than not do anything at all. So guys, it's for that reason that I approve of the Topspin Pro, and one of the shots that I have a difficult time creating topspin is my one-handed backhand. Now, I know that you guys have seen me play and you know that I have a two-hander, so on my one-hander I actually hit it more with a continental grip. I'm very uncomfortable going Eastern, so I'm going to practice going Eastern and getting a little bit more topspin on my one-hander. I'm going to use the Topspin Pro to do that. And guys, the next gadget that I'm going to review is something that a lot of players use, and that is a radar. And there's a lot of radars that are available for purchase, and you can read the reviews and figure out which one's the best. In my opinion, this one, I'm not going to name the name because, again, I'm not sponsored by this company. I actually went out and bought this myself. This is a pretty good product, and I don't think it's 100% accurate, and I don't think any of the radars that are handheld or that are on the court itself are 100% accurate. I talked to some mechanical engineers from really good schools. These are former students of mine, and they told me that it's absolutely impossible to calculate the speed of the serve accurately. And I used this device a bunch of times, and I used it once with my mom, and I was getting some really funky results. Neću ići nazad. Samo ćeš uzeti par laganih servisa, pa ti mi reci, jel piše šta? Jel piše šta? Ništa. Aj, pritisni sad na plavu i drži. Drži. Jel piše šta? Ništa. Aj, na šta, aj ti udri. Ti udri dva forehanda. Ja ću tebi izmiriti, aj. Evo ti rekat. Udri dva forehanda, samo da vidim. Je! Evo viš, 25 na sat. Koliko? 54. Now I will say that I was, of course, using this device wrong. You have to stand correctly so that the speed is measured correctly, but despite all that, I just want to tell you one thing that I find problematic with radar devices, and it might be fun, and I do encourage people to go out and use one, because a lot of players find serving monotonous. They don't want to serve, especially juniors. They find it very boring. So having a radar, whether you're a coach or a player, this will change things up, and all of a sudden the kids are going to be excited, and even if you're a rec player, you're going to be excited to serve because your serve is being measured. So for that reason, I do like the radar, because it does add some excitement to the serve practice. On the other hand, I do find some difficulties where players are forgetting about technique and they just want to get speed, and they just want to hit that ball as hard as possible. They don't even care if it goes in. So I find it problematic to that extent, that if you are using the radar, I still want you to work on your technique, and remember that tennis serving is not all about speed. It's more about technique and precision, and the speed in a lot of ways really it doesn't matter that much. And a perfect example for that are the big three. Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer average 115 miles an hour. That's not fast by any means. There's a lot of guys that serve faster than that. So you have to realize that serving is not all about speed. It is more about the percentages you can get, how many first serves you can get in, how many second serves you can get in, and also what your precision is, how your placement is. That is far more important than serving fast. Of course, if you can do both, if you have the precision, the percentages, and the speed, now you got the whole package and you got a great serve. So there it is, guys. I like the idea of trying out gadgets. This gets a lot of people excited to hit balls, and that is the most important thing for me. When I see people playing tennis, I'm happy. That's my goal. I want to get as many people into the sport of tennis as possible, and if gadgets are going to be the solution to get more players into the sport, then by all means you guys should try out some of these gadgets.
That's beautiful. Wow. That hurt. What in the world is going on, man? Well, actually, the best S trains me. S trainer. Let's come up with a product, the ass trainer.
Yeah.